So, hello and welcome to Nutrition Insights interview series. I'm senior journalist Venya Patel, and today we're looking at new clinical insights from Kaneka Probiotics and AB-Biotics into L-plantarum, KABP-051, body composition, and the emerging link between metabolic and mental well-being. Joining me today is Jordi Riera, who is the Chief Business Officer at Kaneka Probiotics. And we will discuss the new research on KAPB-051 and what it could mean for the future of weight management and psychobiotics. So to start us off, there are many probiotics on the market that claim benefits for weight management or mood. So what makes KABP-051 strain stand out in terms of its mechanism or clinical evidence?
Okay, so KBP-051 has the uniqueness of being one, not to say the only strain that has proven both mechanisms with the same strain, both benefits, both metabolic and weight-related benefits and gut-brain axis benefits in the same strain. You may say that this is two very different benefits and that may create a bit of confusion, but if we go to the root of how the product works, the mechanisms of action, we see that there are common mechanisms that explain that very clearly. And that's what we proved in the most recent clinical trial, where we both measured effects for the gut-brain axis and effects for the weight management, metabolic health.
Okay, and the distinction between the general claims and clinically backed outcomes seems to be quite important. So building on that, the gut-brain axis is increasingly being seen as central to metabolic health and mood. So how does L-plantarum KABP-051 appear to influence this connection?
So this strain already proved in a previous clinical study that it was capable to improve stress, anxiety, and cognition-related aspects, at the same time as proving to decrease cortisol in a population of stressed individuals. In this new study, we measured again gut-brain axis-related benefits, and we see significant improvements in fatigue, in confusion, so mental effects. But at the same time, we measured also the effects on the metabolic health, and we observed things like, for instance, reduction of body weight, reduction of waist circumference, reduction of body fat percentage, and we, in our discussion, we are still doing studies on the mechanisms of action, but in our discussion, there's a clear relationship between the brain and how the body reacts. Actually, there are several studies linking stress with an increased weight, cortisol with increased weight, GLP-1 reduced link with metabolic and hormonal cascades that influence not just metabolism, but also mental performance. And we think that it's a very promising proof that these mechanisms are linked, and therefore that one product can be useful for these two aspects of the individual interest.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It really helps brings the science behind the strain into more clear focus. Like in your study with AB-Biotics, you observed around 2 kilograms of additional weight loss alongside improvements in mood and energy over 12 weeks. And so even without a specific diet or exercise plan. So how should this be interpreted in the context of typical weight loss expectations?
So at the end of the day, 2 kilograms is already a significant decrease. We don't think that this is the amount of weight loss that you expect as a whole only if you are trying to lose weight. But this is certainly something that helps if you are in a weight loss program, if you are trying to achieve an improvement of your body mass index. So we really see that this is a very strong support that at the same time will deliver benefits that can be one of the root causes of someone being overweight, like improving your mental well-being, improving your fatigue, improving your stress levels. So we will see that as a very good supportive regime or product that will help this benefit be successfully achieved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting to see how these measurable effects, even without structured lifestyle changes. but I want to touch a little bit more on the link to GLP-1 and metabolic pathways, because there's a growing interest in how certain probiotics might influence GLP-1, which is the hormone targeted by drugs like Ozempic. So what does this suggest about the potential of a non-drug microbiome-based approach to weight management?
Well, GLP-1 drugs are, at the end of the day, a very strong dose of compound or peptide that is already in the human body. That in that case blocks the body need to ingest food to eat, and that way you achieve a weight loss. So currently, the hunger or the need to eat happens in the brain, happens in the head, and then it translates into the body, how the body feels, how the body digests. So there's an intuition beyond or behind GLP-1s that something's going on the brain first when you're trying to achieve an effect on that. So to me, it's quite a common sense to think that the psychobiotic can have the same influence. And we've characterized, there is a different publication from the clinical trial, but in the discussion of the clinical trial, we mentioned that where we try to characterize the different mechanisms through which the probiotic at the level of the gut can communicate through the vagus nerve with the brain, with, for instance, BDNF, and BDNF at the same time have an influence on GLP-1. And that translates into both effects at the level of the brain, like in the BDNF levels, and that explains the benefits in stress, mood, cognition, fatigue, etc. And then beyond that, the levels of the metabolic health, how you block you suppress or you help not having like the impulse to ingest too many calories, and that the result is the weight loss. So we don't think that this is a product that per se blocks the calories. That's not the intuition behind the mechanism, but it helps the body diet in a healthy manner, and that way achieve the weight loss that is the ultimate desired effect that we were measuring in this study.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to see how the microbiome science can complement pharmaceutical approaches. And you also mentioned psychobiotics. So this term is gaining traction across the nutraceutical space. What does this concept mean for the industry, and how do you see this category evolving over the next few years?
Well, the category started, I would say, right before COVID, around 2019, 18, that there started to be like an interest from the market stakeholders in the concept of something in the gut that has this effect beyond the gut at the level of the brain. The mechanisms are way more understood nowadays. How, for instance, the gut produces most of the serotonin in the body, or how the gut communicates through the vagus nerve with the brain, and how that effects from the gut have impact in the brain, and effects from the brain, like being stressed, have impact in the gut. And we have other studies supporting the other way around, how if you're stressed, you have difficulties for digestion. So all this connection is well more understood nowadays, and the market is evolving with that. I think I recall that there were some data that I checked recently that gut psychobiotics themselves have nearly doubled in the past few years, and have a KGR expected of nearly double digit, 9.6%. I think it was the last one I checked. So we see that more and more the people is looking for natural solutions to manage mental conditions and conditions of the brain function, and probiotics are great for that, because I was saying most of the issues related with the brain functions may start in the gut. So it's not an abstract concept that the gut acts like a second brain in that case.
Yeah, well, that brings us to the end. Jordi, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights into how probiotic science is advancing both in metabolic and mental well-being. And thank you to our audience for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.